Konnichiwa! Welcome to the first show of our new series, the Retro Tech Zone. And for the first show, we're going to be taking a look at the Mega Drive inspired and officially licensed wireless 6-button arcade pad from Retrobit. So let's see how this JoyPad is going to hold up for you in 2021. My name's Mike, and this is the Retro Gamer Boy Show. If this is your first time visiting the Retro Gamer Boy Show, then why not consider subscribing for all your retro gaming goodness, and you can do this by clicking on a little button just below the video. Now, it's no secret how much I love the Sega Mega Drive and Genesis, if you couldn't have guessed already. And I love picking up brand new games and tech for this old classic console. And one of the things that I love trying out regularly is different JoyPads. JoyPads are key to the experience of enjoying these classic consoles. Yes, I love playing with the classic JoyPad. I've got a huge amount of nostalgia with it, and some of the games just don't feel the same unless you have that JoyPad in your hands. I also have an ASCIIware arcade joystick, which I love playing with, but now and then I do wish I had a more modern JoyPad, especially one without a cable. And so today we're going to be doing an extensive and in-depth review of Retrobit's 6-button arcade JoyPad, and this, the wireless receiver. Now, before we get into the review, I just want to let you know that Retrobit actually sent me this JoyPad and wireless adapter for review, but it's going to be an independent review. So I'll let you know the good and the bad about this JoyPad and its receiver. So let's go unbox this bad boy. So the first thing we're going to check out is this, the wireless 8-button arcade pad. And yes, it's got the Genesis branding, which is pretty cool. It makes it feel authentic, although I wish it was Mega Drive. Obviously, coming from the UK, we had the Mega Drive branding. But let's open this up. And the presentation is really nice. I really like this. Got the Genesis logo on the back there, Retrobit, and we've got the JoyPad there embossed, which is really nice. So the unboxing experience so far has been really good. And then we've got some instructions here, and here's the pad. And we've got a charge cable as well. Awesome. Right, let's have a look at the receiver. Pretty simple. Again, that USB charger. Nice and short actually. I quite like these flat cables. And then we've got this charge cable and instructions manual under tray. I'm guessing that fell out. And then here is the receiver. I love this. I love this kind of emerging retro tech that fits with this brand new modern tech. Right, let's get this into the Mega Drive and test it out. Now, I've got to say, I really enjoyed that unboxing. It felt like I was unboxing a classic product, but it had just a little bit more of that modern twist that we find now when we unbox stuff. The embossing of the JoyPad on the box and the really nice materials used in its casing. But the real test is going to be, how does this JoyPad play with these classic Mega Drive games? Now, it's worth saying that if you want to play this JoyPad with your classic games, you're going to have to buy the receiver. Now, the receiver can be bought separately, or you can buy it in a bundle. Now, the bundle is a little bit more expensive, but you get a wireless USB controller so you can play it on PC and other devices, and you get the Mega Drive adapter as well. The JoyPad is compatible with the PlayStation 3, PC and Nintendo Switch, but it's obviously missing a few of the extra little nubbins you'd need to play some games, and so it's really only restricted to your indie, retro-inspired games on those consoles. But the real reason for me purchasing this is to play it on the Sega Mega Drive. So I spent the last week playing with this JoyPad across a number of games, I think 12 in total, across a ton of genres to see how it performs. Now, for the most part, this JoyPad is a love song
to the classic Mega Drive 6-button 2 JoyPad. Its form factor feels very authentic. The branding, the Sega branding on it, makes a big difference to those who are massive Sega fans, or at least it does to me. And I've got to say, the comfort of this JoyPad is really nice. I was surprised at how comfortable it felt. Now firstly, let's talk about the face buttons. I had no issue with the face buttons across all the different games that I've played. In fact, I really like how the contour of the buttons follow the contours of the JoyPad. It feels really nice moving your fingers across that top row of buttons, the X, Y, and Z. Them being smaller and just slightly raised makes them really easy to press. And then the A, B, C buttons, the classic 3 buttons of the Sega Mega Drive, are also well made. They have a satisfying click motion to them, and I can move easily across them without the other buttons interfering with each other. There's a nice little raised nubbin on the B button and 2 little nubbins on the X button, so you know which button you're on. Although if you're a seasoned gamer, that's not going to be a problem for you. The shoulder buttons are really nice as well. They're actually slightly hinged off center, so the further from the center that you move out, the easier it is to press the buttons, meaning that the outer edges of the button here are really easy to press. It means with my finger over here, when I apply slight pressure with the mid part of my finger, I'm pressing the button. Now this is how I like to play my games. If you want more friction on your button though, you can move slightly up. So if you're a gamer that likes to have a little bit more precision, you don't want to accidentally press these shoulder buttons, playing like this will mean that you'll get more resistance. Now the further on down the button, the less resistance. Now the start button works as a start button does, and you've also got this home and select button. And then these are really if you're playing on the other consoles, if you're playing I guess on the PlayStation 3 and especially if you're playing on the Nintendo Switch. Now the home button here is what you use to power on the JoyPad, and once it's connected to the wireless adapter, you'll get some rumble in the JoyPad. Yes, the JoyPad has rumble as well. Now again, this does nothing for the Sega Mega Drive, but if you're playing on the Nintendo Switch, it's a nice little extra. Now I've been playing with the JoyPad for about a week, 1 or 2 hours a day, and I haven't had to charge it at all at the moment. But when I do, you just have to plug in the USB cable that comes into the back here, and it's this standard micro or mini, I've forgotten what this connector is called here, but it's the same one that you would use on a PlayStation 4 JoyPad. So I'm really impressed with the face buttons on this JoyPad, especially this top row, the X, Y, and Z button. Playing Street Fighter 2 with this JoyPad was absolutely fantastic pressing these buttons. Now one aspect of the JoyPad that we haven't covered is the D-pad, and probably one of the most important aspects of any JoyPad. Now technically, the D-pad works fantastically well, extremely responsive. I didn't notice any lag at all. The internals of it are great. But I do have a problem with the form factor of the D-pad. And it isn't the same problem for each game. So let's take a look at the D-pad and some of the issues that I had with it. So I'm going to be looking at 5 genres of game that I tested the JoyPad with. Each of them uses the D-pad in a very different way. Now the first was first-person shooters. Now there aren't many of them. 3 that were released in Europe, 4 worldwide, and I guess you could include the first-person shooter part of Toy Story as a 5th, although it isn't really. Now when playing your first-person shooters, you're moving your thumb continually around the JoyPad, moving in all directions. And the problem with this JoyPad is that there is a slight click as you go around. Not an audible click, but a click that you can feel as you hit the different diagonals on the JoyPad. So as I move my thumb around the JoyPad here, I get a click motion as it moves into these diagonals here. Now it might be because, and I don't know if I can get this on camera, this JoyPad is actually raised quite high off of the pad, and that might be because of the curved design of the JoyPad. But there was a distinctive click as I went round here. Now, it didn't really affect so much the on-screen gameplay, but it did affect the ambience of the game that I was playing. First-person shooters tend to be a little bit on edge, keeping you in suspense. And as I was going around corners in zero tolerance, some of that suspense was spoilt as I was very conscious that I was using the JoyPad. Next up, I tested Super Street Fighter 2 with the JoyPad, and I came across another issue with the D-pad here. Now, On the whole, the raised buttons here, or the raised edges of the D-pad here, really helped with Street Fighter 2. I found that I could pull off a number of moves a lot easier than I would do on a standard controller. But it was really uncomfortable, and it was uncomfortable because of the raised edges of the D-pad here. Now, like I said, as I was moving my thumb around the JoyPad, I was really able to pull off the moves a lot easier than I would do with a standard Mega Drive controller. And in part, it was due to the fact that the JoyPad here, or the D-pad here, is raised. Now, that was a benefit, but the negative was that as I was running my fingers past this, it was quite uncomfortable. This is quite a hard plastic, and these are quite well raised up above the rest of the D-pad here. And so by the end of the gameplay, I had a little bit of a sore thumb. Now, sore thumb is a classic injury sustained by Street Fighter players, especially on the Sega Mega Drive. But I found myself getting to that point a lot sooner than I would do on a standard JoyPad. And so I think the molding here, it being raised here, contributed to the uncomfortableness of pulling off those moves. Now, like I said, there was a benefit to it as well, because I did find I was able to pull off the moves a lot quicker. And using these face buttons here were fantastic with Street Fighter. Now, with the next two genres of games, I had next to no issues with. Yes, the issues I raised with the other two games were persistent, but not really noticeable. With the platform games, it was a very digital experience anyway. I'm not really going in different directions. And so I found myself less moving my thumb around the JoyPad and more moving my thumb to the positions that were needed so that I could move the character around the screen. And games like this, Dune 2, that use a mouse pointer, I had less issues with as well. Now, whilst like with first-person shooters, I'm moving my thumb around the JoyPad, I was less bothered by the click in the diagonals. I guess because there's less of an ambience in these games. It's a more mechanical type of game that you're playing. Lastly, I tested beat-em-ups, and for the most part, the JoyPads work excellently, except for one little issue that I had. And that is, performing a double tap with this JoyPad is not very intuitive. Now, that might be due to how I hold the JoyPad and control the D-pad here. I tend to control the D-pad with the base of my thumb rather than with the tip of my thumb. So I roll the thumb across the D-pad like this. Now, when I'm doing a double tap, I tap and then tap again. Now, with a conventional JoyPad that hasn't got this raised bit here, tapping, then slightly lifting my finger off and tapping again is relatively comfortable. It feels quite intuitive. But I think, again, because of these raised edges, my thumb always had a constant contact on it. And so whilst I was able to perform the double tap with relative ease, I still felt this weird feeling that I wasn't performing it, because I think this raised lip here was always in contact with my thumb. So it didn't feel like I'd had that lift of the JoyPad and then was pressing it again. Now, this could just be down to the fact of how I play my game and the nostalgia and memory muscle of playing with those old JoyPads, but it did feel a little odd. Now, like I said, it didn't affect my experience of the game. I was able to pull off all the moves. Double tap was certainly possible. It wasn't difficult, just a little awkward or weird to do. So that was the JoyPad. Overall, very comfortable, aesthetically pleasing, and has a real sense of nostalgia to it. And the Sega official branding helps as well. The face buttons are fantastic. I like the shoulder buttons, but I do have some issues with the D-pad. None of them fatal, just a little discomfort, especially when playing Street Fighter, and it was a little awkward when doing the double tap. At least it felt like that. But overall, a well-executed, built JoyPad. Now on to the star of this show, the receiver. Now, it's a little odd to say that because usually the JoyPad, the device you're using, is the star of the show. But this receiver is absolutely amazing. It not only works with your Sega Mega Drive and the Retrobit JoyPad, but it also works with PlayStation 4, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch JoyPads as well. That means you can use those JoyPads on your Mega Drive. Now again, yes, I know you want to play with your classic JoyPads, but some of these games really benefit from the thumbsticks that come with these modern JoyPads as well. And if you're playing an RPG, you know how fatigued you can get playing with the classic pads. Or if you play Street Fighter, that sore thumb vanishes when you play with a modern pad. And this receiver supports all of those controllers. It's super easy and simple to set up each one of the controllers. It usually involves pressing 2 buttons on any of the joypads to sync them to this receiver here. Now the receiver is also fantastically designed. It looks like a genuine piece of Mega Drive or Genesis hardware sticking out the front of your console. And it's a lot better than controller adapters like this. This is the Brook adapter. Now it is a great piece of kit, but almost double the price of this, and a little bit more cumbersome than this. And you can see here we have the Retrobit receiver over here. Really nice piece of kit, really suits the cutting edge design of the Sega Mega Drive and Genesis. And this here is the Brook controller. And whilst it looks nice and authentic, having all these extra long wires and ports hanging out of your Mega Drive isn't always the best look for this console. And taking this out and putting it in is relatively simple. It's a really nice tight fit, but not overly tight that you have to wiggle and shake it to get it in. It fits in perfectly. It automatically powers up, and then you just have to sync your controller to the actual wireless adapter here. As yet, I've not had to charge this at all in the week of playing this, so I'm guessing perhaps the charge is coming from the Sega Mega Drive. So there we have it, the Retrobit wireless joypad for the Sega Mega Drive and the wireless adapter. It's a great little joypad. I love that it has the official licensing from Sega. I love the form factor and how comfortable it is, but there are some issues with that D-pad, but nothing that will affect your gameplay or how good you are at playing games. Overall, the experience of using the wireless adapter and the joypad were great. I only wish I got sent the Mega Drive branding, although beggars can't be choosers. I will probably go out and pick up the Retrobit Mega Drive branded joypad. That's it for this week's show. If you've enjoyed it, make sure that you get notifications turned on so that you never miss a retro gaming episode. You can do this by clicking on the little bell just below this video here. We put out brand new retro gaming shows every Monday, and we have a huge back catalogue of retro gaming videos, 2 of which you can enjoy over here.